a station working for you. This is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
And now at 5:30, we are waiting for state police who will soon lay out the evidence involved in their investigation of the Drejon Reed case. Now, about half an hour ago, the special prosecutor announced the IMPD officer who shot and killed Reed after a car chase will not face charges. We're going to listen in soon on what is expected to be a 30-minute presentation of the state's evidence in this case, and we are waiting again on state police to start speaking. We will come back to it as soon as they get to the podium. And while doctors and nurses are also dealing with an increase in COVID-19 patients, emergency room staff are also seeing an increase in people coming in for mental health issues. WRTV's Alyssa Donovan found out how this is impacting local healthcare systems.
In IU Health's large emergency departments, 1 in 4 people coming in are seeking behavioral health assistance, and doctors say resources are starting to run thin.
A lot of the inpatient units are reaching capacity.
The amount of people who need mental health care has greatly increased this year.
Compared to 2019, we are seeing about double the amount of patients coming into our emergency departments with a primary diagnosis of behavioral health.
IU Health is not the only healthcare system feeling the impact.
The clinics that we treat anxiety, depression, addiction, we've seen our biggest increase in access to care at those clinics.
Eskenazi Health Clinics have seen a 35% increase in people seeking mental health care in just the past 3 months. And the increase in patients is taking a toll on healthcare workers. Eskenazi is providing time for staff to talk with the supervisor.
To talk about tough cases, things that are going on for them, how they're kind of coping with all the changes that we have had to do in response to the pandemic.
IU Health is also providing support for workers. They're getting ready to start a peer support program as well as counseling.
We're trying to help each and every person that we can in the way they need help. I will tell you that it is difficult.
If you are experiencing depression, anxiety, or suicidal ideation, you can start with your primary care physician. And if you need to, you can walk into any emergency department for help or call a mental health hotline. I'm Alyssa Donovan, WRTV.
Eskenazi Health does have a mental health line. That number is 317-880-8491. Kevin.
We've had plenty of sunshine today in bursts through the cloud cover, but despite the clouds, that did not hold temperatures back. Cloud cover starting to thicken now as we get some development of showers in the southern portion of the state. Let's zip to the south first. You can see this will cross the Ohio River, but up near Bedford, Seymour, Bloomington, Nashville, and Columbus, rain I think will expand here in the southern portion of the state. But this is the main event. And what I mean by that, that's the cold front. That's where we'll have potential for some stronger storms and the definite temperature drop. On this side, it's winter. On this side, it still feels more like spring in some instances. Our rain chances will climb, as you can see, and peak. Now, this is for Indianapolis at around 11 o'clock. I think that it will be earlier in the western portion of the state. Now to the Indiana State Police and their press conference.
Post here in Indianapolis. This evening, you're going to hear from 2 individuals, Superintendent Doug Carter and Lieutenant Jeff Herring, who's going to provide information relative to the police action shooting resulting in the death of Drejon Reed. Please understand that the information that's going to be provided is factual in nature. It was the information that was developed during the course of this methodical and intensive investigation. They're going to provide information on what they know instead of what they don't. Nothing here will be speculative. It will all be fact. Please understand, too, that there will be some images of violence. There will be some profanity and things of that nature, so viewer discretion is advised. So without any further ado, please allow me to turn this over to Superintendent Doug Carter of the Indiana State Police. Thank you.
What you won't hear is what was presented to the grand jury because we don't know. Both Lieutenant Herring and I, neither one of us were a part of that grand jury. But the law does allow us to tell you what our investigation has shown. So while this is a bit of an extraordinary circumstance for us to do it this way, we're living in extraordinary times. Captain Galavis talked about what you're about to see. Please remember the human side of what you're about to see, both from the perspective of the IMPD and of the family and friends of Drejon Reed. I hope you'll look at this as objectively as we have, and that maybe you'll be able to very, very clearly quantify objectivity after you hear what and see what you're about to hear and see from Lieutenant Herron. I'll scream from the highest mountaintop to anybody that'll listen about the quality of this work product and what's been done. I am so very grateful to our detectives and all the people that were involved in this process. And again, those aren't just simple words from me. The community, the city of Indianapolis deserves to know the facts. So please don't ask us to speculate, because we won't. But we will be here to interact with you. This is going to take about 30 minutes probably. And you can make the decision about what you might air publicly after you see what you're about to see. Lieutenant Jeff Herron has been around the department more than almost 35 years. And he is the go-to guy for me. I keep him on speed dial, and he's the guy that has so much experience. And I think you'll also be able to see the quality of this individual and of this human being, because again, our job is to provide answers, not to come up with a subjective opinion. So with that being said, Lieutenant Jeff Herron.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. So I'm going to give you an overview of the case. Again, I was not part of the grand jury, so I was not in the room when the witnesses were speaking. So let's talk about the investigation. So as you all know, May 6, 2020, approximately 1800 or 6 p.m., we have Chief Taylor from IMPD and Deputy Chief Adams from IMPD. They are northbound on I-65 when Chief Adams observes a vehicle, a dark-colored Toyota passenger car, in his rearview mirror appear to run a vehicle off the road. He tries to stop that vehicle, activates his lights, and the vehicle doesn't stop. They go northbound on I-65, where they get off on the 38th Street collector, and ultimately the pursuit starts and it goes northbound on Guyan Road until it's taken over by the district IMPD officers. This is basically the timeline of the pursuit. Again, it starts at 6 p.m. and from the beginning of the actual pursuit to the shots fired is 6:16 p.m., so 16 minutes in the entire timeline. This is basically the route. The pursuit starts down here on I-65, gets up on 38th Street, and goes north on Guyan Road. This is actually the route of the pursuit. The yellow line would indicate the actual pursuit route, and then the green line would actually indicate where Officer Mercer, where the pursuit was terminated, and Officer Mercer continued to follow Mr. Reed's vehicle. Okay, so what happens basically is during the pursuit, Mr. Reed, his driving is so erratic that the officers believe that he's a danger to life and property, and so they disregard the pursuit. IMPD's policy is, even though they disregard the pursuit, they can continue to follow the vehicle that they were pursuing as long as they are obeying the traffic laws. In this particular case, Mr. Reed slowed down and began to obey the traffic laws, and he was followed by Officer Mercer. So orientate you to this map. This is the actual scene. This is Michigan Road. This is 62nd Street. What you're going to see here in a minute is that Mr. Reed's vehicle comes in, pulls behind what we call the ace lock and key, parks his vehicle, gets out, runs across the street and down the sidewalk here. Officer Mercer pulls into the parking lot, pulls behind the building, exits his vehicle, and does a foot pursuit after Mr. Reed. Obviously, Mr. Reed, I think you all know that Mr. Reed was live streaming this, and that entire live stream is 1 hour and 9 minutes from start to finish. What we did is, if you're doing a live stream, you're basically, everything is reversed. So as you're live streaming it, what you're putting out is the reverse image. What we did is, during our investigation, is we had this actually flipped, and we cut that down to just an appropriate point, which was the 15 minutes and 30 seconds. IMPD did a very good job of their investigation. when, like I believe Ms. Curry said, when at all possible, we try to go back to the source to get our information. And so as far as surveillance videos, we went back to the library, actually got the surveillance off of the library, the public library, we got it off of their server. Same thing with this, we've actually went back to the ACE lock and key. Instead of using IMPD's copy, we actually went back and got it off of their server for ACE lock and key. You're going to see the different camera angles. This camera angle here is what you're going to see Mr. Reed get out of his vehicle. And this one here, you actually see the intersection. Again, those are the other camera angles. And in this particular photograph here, this is Officer Mercer's vehicle. This is a compilation of the different videos. What you see here, again, to orientate you, this is 62nd Street, this is Michigan Road. Here in just a second, you're going to see Mr. Reed pull in to the parking lot of the ACE lock and key right here. He's going to pull around back, park his vehicle, and get out and run. As he gets out, you're going to see him reach down on his waist. It's Officer Mercer pulling in. And running after Mr. Reed. This is going to fade out, and you're going to see camera 7 of the ACE lock and key. It's going to show that sidewalk and the view of that as Officer Mercer up here in the corner is chasing Mr. Reed. We're going to see this image quite a few times later. We're going to enhance this. This is going to, we've synced this together. This is going to be Mr. Reed as he's getting out of his vehicle and running. This is going to be synced with him pulling up to the backside of the ACE lock and key and slamming the door.
Come get my little baby! Please come get me!
With radio traffic. We interposed the radio traffic from Officer Mercer over this.
I'm going. Please come get me! What'd you say? I give it. Hey, black number, thank you. Black number, but you want to fuck you and
And due to the language and some of the violent images in this presentation, we will be concluding our on-air coverage of this press conference at this time. You can continue watching it on our online platforms. That will be at the WRTV Facebook page, WRTV.com, and the WRTV streaming app, which you can find on your streaming devices. We will conclude our on-air coverage of this press conference at this time. One of IndyCar's fan-favorite drivers has a partial ride for the 2021 season and another chance to win his 4th Indy 500. MEYER SHANK Racing announced today that 3-time Indy 500 champ HELIO will join their team for 6 races in 2021, including the 500 and the road course in August at IMS. Prior to this, HELIO spent 21 seasons with Team Penske. Indy Parks is celebrating the grand opening and makeover of a Southside park with all kinds of cool new things to encourage kids to get out and play. Sandorf Park on the near south side is now ready to welcome the return of kids and families. It's undergone quite a makeover over the past several months. That includes swings, a musical sensory plaza, Unity Spinner, fully accessible play structure, and more. The park is conveniently located right behind Frederick Douglass IPS School 19, and the students are looking forward to all it has to offer.
We look forward to putting this park to greater use than ever before. This has been a long-awaited day, not only for all of our students, but this entire community.
The park also includes a junior NBA basketball court, a youth fitness challenge course with exercise equipment, and the state's first multi-use game area court, which allows for basketball, futsal, volleyball, pickleball, and more all in one place. Big baby news from the Indianapolis Zoo, a newborn that already stands about 6 feet tall. The zoo announced today that a male reticulated giraffe was born at 4:35 a.m. Sunday. The curious newborn, who weighed 135 pounds at birth, is already growing and will be several feet tall before his first birthday. The little guy is the first calf for 3-year-old mother Kita. Listen to this, moms. Her pregnancy lasted 14 months. The new family is expected to make its public debut in the spring. The zoo's giraffe herd is now up to 5. An Indianapolis charter school now has its first school bus, and while it's still yellow in color, it's really green. Paramount Cottage Home at Paramount Schools of Excellence campus took delivery of its bus today, and it's electric. The vehicle purchased by the Eastside School delivers on Paramount's promise to the Cottage Home Neighborhood Association to use an electric bus to reduce the car volume on the campus and reduce the pollution that would affect nearby homes.
We wanted to make a statement to say that pollution in Indianapolis, especially Indianapolis, is a serious issue, and pollution is a health issue as much as COVID is a health issue. And we need to pay attention to these issues so we can push our city forward and make a larger difference when we're talking about the health of our future generations.
The bus can hold up to 60 passengers and goes 125 miles before needing to be charged. We'll be right back after this break. Now to Democracy 2020, and President Joe Biden is starting the first week of his transition focusing on the health of our country, both medically and economically. He's been calling for unity across the country, but as ABC's Rena Roy reports, there was still a deep divide with the president and his supporters refusing to accept defeat.
It's been 4 days since Joe Biden was projected president-elect, yet still no acknowledgement from President Trump that he's lost. Instead, he's been uncharacteristically out of the public eye as Joe Biden prepares to lead the country. The president-elect has addressed the American people daily with calls for unity and focusing on issues his administration will need to deal with immediately, like the coronavirus pandemic, the economy, and the future of the Affordable Care Act.
This doesn't need to be a partisan issue. It's a human issue. The consequences of the Trump administration's argument are not academic or an abstraction. For many Americans, they're a matter of life and death in a literal sense.
Meanwhile, the Trump team and most Republicans in Congress remain defiant. The latest demand calling for a full hand recount in Georgia, a state where Trump is trailing and Biden's lead is growing. The president's campaign has also filed numerous lawsuits, but federal and state judges have found no evidence of voter fraud.
It's not unusual. Should not be alarming.
And in another sign, Republicans and the current White House are refusing to accept reality. There's this from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration.
The General Services Administration, which facilitates the transition of any new president, also refusing to recognize Biden's victory, withholding crucial transition resources.
I'm confident that the fact that they're not willing to acknowledge we won at this point is not of much consequence in our planning and what we're able to do between now and January 20th.
And in an unprecedented move going against longstanding government policy, Attorney General William Barr authorizing federal prosecutors to investigate credible allegations of voter fraud before states have even finished counting ballots.
The Biden team has slammed Barr, saying American democracy is stronger than any partisan political scheme. Rena Roy, ABC News, Wilmington, Delaware.
And we've got a couple different views for you here at 5:53 on this Tuesday evening. There's one little bright spot as you look to the north, and here's one to the west where you see a little of the setting sun. City lights coming up. Our thunderstorm chances and rain chances will also be increasing this evening. Temperatures still unbelievable for this time of the year. Tomorrow night at this time, I'll show you a map that'll be a 24-hour temperature change, and I bet it will show between 20 and 30 degrees cooler than where we are now. 74 in Indy was another record high temperature for the metro area. So we look at the radar, all is quiet within the Hoosier State. There are some showers between Nashville and Columbus, just to the southwest of Seymour, and in Lawrence County as well, around Bedford. Nothing strong. The stronger storms sit over in northern Illinois. I think northern Illinois into Wisconsin will have the greatest threat for severe weather. As these storms move to the east, the overall intensity will decrease. We're still at a marginal risk, so our risk isn't zero. It's windy, independent of any of the thunderstorms or any winds added by this line out ahead of the colder air. So we'll keep our eye on that. Let's talk about the timing. I'll move so you can see the clock here as we get to 7 o'clock. Some rain from Indy east to Richmond, then southwest. That's ahead of the line of showers and thunderstorms that currently exists in Illinois. Terre Haute to Lafayette. That's at 9 o'clock tonight. 11 should be moving through and just east of the metro area. By 1 in the morning, starting to push toward the Buckeye State, and it will be on as far as the cooler air sweeping into central Indiana. Anytime we have active weather, Storm Shield app, it is free for your phone and definitely handy to have. There's your 7-day forecast after the rain tonight. It's much cooler for a prolonged period of time, as you can see, with lows back in the 30s. We'll be back with more news right after this.
Welcome back. Tomorrow night is country music's biggest night of the year, the annual CMA Awards here on WRTV. But this year, the stars will be primarily performing for a TV audience only. Due to the pandemic, no fans will be at Nashville's Music Center. Only the nominees, performers, and their guests will be in the house. Rehearsals are underway for the big night. The venue has been set up to resemble the very first CMA show in 1967. Miranda Lambert leads the way this year with 7 nominations and is now the most nominated female artist in CMA Awards history.
I've done this now for 17 years. It's my life's work, and so to be here all these years later, and my peers and people in the business, all the relationships I've made, for people to still support what I'm doing, it means the world to me. It puts a fire under me, honestly, to keep going and do more and do better.